Hey there, good to see ya. It's been a while. Hope you don't mind. I brought a friend with me this time. Add a little depth and a little space. I'm also keeping this space open so that I can add in text and stuff like that when we're doing teaching and going over some different things together. All right, so we are jumping into a card reading. Same thing, we're going to jump into, ooh, I like this. Third wheel, the observer. Let's talk about this together, shall we? Okay, wheel 3. So we're based in the realm of experience, and we have the quartet of outlying seraphode instead of the volatile threefold wheel. So we're a bit more stable because essence takes its place. So we're starting to distill the things that are happening. Makes sense why we would have observer. There's still a fine balance between alertness and illusion, between the manifestation of something and its loss or disappearance. Flashes of higher consciousness. Okay, so let's get into that. Well, my friends, it sounds like you are going through a thing and getting a sense of stuff in glances. So hopefully our session today will bring that out for you in a way that you're able to look at it a little more clearly. So the oracle says, the glance proceeds out of the eye and down onto the earth, and for a little while the earth is stilled. Steadily all is noticed, even the silent flickering and the secret properties of the eye. Then the earth appears to move, and for a moment the eye looks inward. Yes. Observation plays a fundamental part. Yes, in all kinds of training, the same goes for inner work. Learning to note all the slight changes and responses, being on the lookout for anything unusual. It helps us to purify false impressions and to hone our energies. I love that. And there are some really significant thresholds where we can gain extraordinary knowledge as the attention moves between the outward and the inward, the sleeping and the waking. If you're seeking hidden knowledge, seek out such known borders and explore them. I love that. Oh, brilliant. So you may be entering a phase, life tasks, interpretations, where you can only observe attentively. You've done what you can, and now you must wait for the results. So don't drift off to sleep. You got to stay present. Noting your own accurate impressions will be very valuable in the times to come. You can gather material even if you can't yet do anything with it. I do this all the time, my friends. There are, gosh, I mean, come on. You're learning, you're in process. You don't understand how it all comes together just yet. So, for example, I work with an astrology app. And yes, I've been studying for like 8 years. That doesn't mean you know anything. It is a 9,000-year-old or whatever observational science. So when when I see different things that I think make sense to me, but there's not necessarily a translation in an app or easily accessible, or I don't have time to look it up, I will take a snapshot on my phone and be like, okay, I need to take a look at that for later. Trusting that my intuition is highlighting something for me to note, even though I don't have the context to give it a meaning in my life just yet. Where are there things happening in your life right now that are saying, whether it's a feeling, whether it's a buzz in your ear, maybe it's your breath quickens up, like we talk about excitement leading us down the path these days towards the universe and the waking up and the new earth and all of these wonderful things that everybody likes to talk about. For us, as we are on this threshold of change, an example of one, on the 11th, the nodes are changing signs. That happens once every 18 months. So we're going from one particular axis and dichotomy to another. And that's happening within days. So when that happens, when signs are changing, when things move houses, it means that we have an opportunity to witness a shift in our values. It might happen externally, it might happen internally, depending on where that lands in your particular chart. But it is an opportunity for you to shift as things are changing. What you need to know is when your spirit hones in on something, and that's what we're talking about when we are the observer. You are building a language for yourself that says, this is what it feels like, sounds like, looks like when something is important. It's a great place to start. It's a good place to start building that language, that dictionary for yourself, because everybody's is unique. And whether you know things or hear things or see things or learn things, there's this opportunity for you to go, okay, this is what I know and this is why I know it's important. Or this is something that I know might be important and I'll take a look at it later, maybe in 6 months to a year. I don't know about you, but I love being able to go, oh man, I haven't wrapped my head around that yet, but I'll get there. Case in point, this book I bought in February of 2022. I said I will go through a card a day so that I understand what the heck the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life is in relation to my life. I do that in tarot. I did that in tarot for over 2 decades. I still do, right? Astrology I mentioned for over a decade. There are cultural practices and artistic practices and business practices that I've been walking alongside of for years in order to say, this is what I know from a learned student perspective, but this is how it applies to my life, and I'm able to give it meaning, and I'm able to live my life guided by those principles more meaningfully. Well, I tell you what, it took me a year and a half of reading these being like, I'm sorry, what does that say? Before I started to go, oh, okay, I can start to see what that means in the context of my life. This is how we do the work. You are learning things, but it's about your application of the knowledge and the expertise from other people, external sources, translated into your life. When I work with students, like when I'm teaching and I've got students in micro internships and internship projects, I address the challenge at the very beginning and then all throughout those sessions. Where are you able to create your own opinions? Can you introduce critical thought to this? What does this mean to you? How would you apply it in your own life? Because if you're learning project management, for example, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I'm going to do a business model canvas and that's going to break down the operations for an organization. Not necessarily. It's only one perspective, and depending on the approach that you're using, can be very limited, right? I like to say, when you want to get a deep understanding of something, you want to look at it from as many perspectives and in many different sides as possible. So you think about the proverbial elephant in a room. You're not just going to go in through the one door and be like, hey, there's a butt here, I must be dealing with rope, right? No, you're going to take a look in the window, you're going to take a look in the other door, you're going to be able to go around the room in order to get a sense of what you're dealing with so that you can finally figure out, oh my god, there's an elephant in this room. It's up to you to start to define the elephant in this universe, my friend. And part of what you're doing right now is developing the skill set and a process and a priority system. And that doesn't happen overnight. You're going to be walking alongside this information for a while. So I encourage you to get curious about shifting your perspective on things, because when we talk about transmutation, lead to gold, turning lead into gold, sorry, that is very much connected to the process of gaining a different perspective and applying a different context to various situations in your lives, so that you're able to go, oh wow, instead of this being a challenge, I'm like, I'm going to trust it. It's got to be there for my highest good, otherwise it wouldn't happen to me. The universe no longer becomes punitive, it becomes a blessing giver, which ultimately it is. It's like the benevolent parent that's like, I want to give you everything you've ever asked for. And you're like, yeah, sure, give me a headache. And they're like, okay. Seriously. It's it's so literal and simple at the same time that we can't believe it for the first while. I truly encourage you to get curious, to create little experiments in order to learn something, apply it in a particular context, revisit it in 6 months to see if that still worked. Keep a journal, right? You are the scientist. You are the observer, my friends. And there is this beautiful opportunity, as the Oracle was speaking to, for you to see something that you will see now that you might not see in 6 months, because you've already known that. And so you're already saying, I know what's going to happen there. I'm sure you might have heard this, the concept of a beginning meditator who's able to encounter nirvana much faster than a master meditator who's been going at it for 50 years who's like, no, I know how this is going to work. The more you apply your understanding and pressure to it now, the more you're going to miss the magic of the moment and the unfolding. And so there's this beautiful process that this dance that you are starting to learn, where you are saying, hey, I know this much. Oh, maybe I don't. Oh, I know this much. Maybe I don't. And by changing our perspective from the master to the teacher, it's not easy, right? Because we get frustrated as the student. We get prideful as we are able to gain some mastery over whatever we're dealing with. And we're not willing to easily give that up because we work damn hard for that sense of ownership, right? So learning and unlearning becomes this dance unto itself, and the student mentality and allowing yourself to be everything that you are, and then letting all of that go so that you can be whoever you need to be, and then having all of the plans and then letting those go because you realize that it's not your plan that's moving forward and that's actually not making you happy. I tell you, the universe, when you get to a place and you're working with spirit source in the universe and you understand that your plans never mattered in the first place, being present to your desires that come from deeply from within is what's actually going to guide you, become your inner compass moving forward. Which is why it's so important now when you are working towards a particular threshold, you're coming into a level of awakening, you've gone from a place of volatility to a bit of stability, and you're able to say, okay, how do I take this next wave? It's so precious. It's so beautiful. And it's going to be so meaningful because you're going to be doing the same lessons, the same environmental development again and again and again in different areas, different contexts, different conversations, different levels of understanding, different levels of integration and meaning. And I tell you, when the work becomes the soul work, which becomes the soul and getting out of the ego, like the ego getting out of the way of the soul's simple existence, then life becomes a beautiful experience, adventure. Uh, and no matter what you come from, because as I used to say to myself, or I used to describe myself, I went from a self, self-ordained queen of shit mountain, out through bankruptcy, out through homelessness, out through addiction, out through abusive relationships, out through domestic violence, out through family abuse and coercion and control, out through systemic poverty, out through you name it. Okay, my friends, and I am sure there are going to be some really tough lessons yet ahead of me because I have, just like you, signed up for a lifetime of experience on this plane and in this dimension. Then you're going to understand when I truly mean and say with sincerity that you are going to be okay. You're going to be better than okay. By you acknowledging that you've gotten this far, you've made it this far, you're okay. And when you come up to the next thing and you doubt whether or not you're going to be okay, that's going to be okay too. And you'll come back here, we'll hang out together, and I will remind you that you are an incredible human being and you have everything that you need in order to move forward. And I absolutely, wholeheartedly believe in you and your success. I mean, the love that I have for my community, for those that I care for the universe and the planet. Imagine that rainbow of care and affection headed towards you without any boundaries, without any limits, because that is what I want you to understand, that I am sending you all my love and support. All right. Okay, that was sappy. But, it happens. All right. Let's wrap up. I will see you next time. And until then, take care, keep your eyes open, and stay ever watchful. Bye.